because it happens all over all the time. And I think that there's so many instances with gender and race and religion and everywhere where there is inequality, so I think it can be justified.
I shouldn't say that they're justified. In fact, there's a new movement and a new statute that came down that says that people, even in municipal court with small traffic cases, if they financially qualify, they should be allowed to have an attorney, or if they're incarcerated. And before, if you were in municipal court, which is really low-level court and had low-level charges, you didn't have a right to that. You kind of went without an attorney.
Yeah, I think maybe in some cases for criminals, maybe,
Right.
or for criminals.
Well, inequalities to me means someone's given a privilege over another from the start. So if we're really trying to make it fair for everyone, I believe that we should have a clean slate right at the beginning where no one has like an advantage or a head start over everyone. For like example, I think that in society, I mean, I'm half white, and I'm still saying this, that whites gain an advantage over every other race just because that's who started the civilization. But everyone has made an impact on our civilization, so I believe that we should all be able to contribute to the talk of who's more better than everyone else. I believe that that's wrong, because I feel like everyone should have the same start.
Can they be justified? I think that they're based in history, but as far as being justifiable, I don't agree with that. I don't think you can justify that with any real empirical based evidence. I think that we collect them as a culture and an ideology, but they may have served for something in the past, but not something that was necessarily good.
Well, I don't think this is current, but I keep thinking about the Native Americans, and when we came over from England and just decided to plow through everything. And I think, during college, that's a lot of what I studied, and I think it's ongoing, and it started from when this country started, and it's still, we placed a lot of them in little reservations, and they've created their own societies, but it's just, I think it's inequality across the board for them, and a lot of them have a hard time coming into our society.
I would say access to education, and although that it's easy to say that there's plenty of access, anybody can go to school, anybody can apply for it. The fact that there's so many barriers to the financial resources, even getting student loans or that sort of thing, is based on credit, and there just aren't enough people that understand or know that they can qualify for financial assistance or anything else. And the fact that we have to pay for it, I think, really creates a big gap.
Probably the income inequality, the difference between education and job opportunities for people with lower income, and also gender inequality, like the pay gap.
I'd say discrimination against races. As I said before, it generates so much issues that could be avoided if we all just had a level playing field. For example, with media, we see so much talk about whites versus blacks, especially with cops and stuff, which could be honestly fixed if we all started at the same level. And I believe that it's just higher up because other issues are big, but I feel like the central issue that causes everything else. Because right from the start, whites believe they're higher up than, say, Hispanics, Asians, and blacks. So if they think they're higher up, obviously the lower downs, us that I'm even a part of, believe that we're already put at a disadvantage. So I think that's what causes a lot of the issues in society today.
Sexism, I suppose. Being a woman, that's the one I'm most experienced with. I do believe that there are a lot of sexist ideology in our culture. We experience it all the time, as far as things that we don't even notice, or things that people don't think are sexist but are sexist. And I know that a lot of people don't believe that sexism even exists anymore, but women still get 75 cents to the dollar, and we still have that glass ceiling. I mean, it's still alive and well.
Maybe when it comes to stuff like just basic human rights, in some parts of the world, people that don't have access to water and food and shelter and just clothing, those should probably take precedence over things like, you know, female CEOs that aren't making quite as much money as male CEOs, even though that's something that I feel should be addressed. I think the things that they're not receiving should be like whatever the actual material thing is that is creating this inequality, that should be taken into consideration.
I'd say there's some that's more justifiable than others, such as when we're talking about discrimination, racism. That's not justifiable. That's just hating someone because of their skin color when we're all equal. But if you hate someone for having a higher economic status, that's especially if it's part of their heritage. If they have gained that money and they're getting it passed down, you can't really blame them for being born into a wealthy family. But you can blame someone for being a racist and discriminating against color.
I find that there's a lot of inequalities in the government and also in the courthouse, and usually that's financial. I mean, there's a couple things behind that. There's socioeconomic differences. If you come from a poor background and you have poor levels of education, you're surrounded by people that have poor levels of education, you have poor information. With that poor information, you make bad decisions, bad consequences that result because you had the wrong information.
None of them are really justified, as I said before, but I just say sexism because I actually experience it.
So it's just relative.
It's relative to my experience. I can't speak for individuals who are experiencing other inequalities of minority groups other than being female.
If you look at, say, for example, the high school I went to, Cherry Creek, we had something like a 98% graduation rate, and out of the graduates, there was a big, I don't know, something like 88% went on to college. I mean, there's less of a gap there. When you go into an inner city school, the graduation rate is somewhere around 40%, and of those 45%, about half of them go to school. So you got to figure, if you're a kid in one of these high schools, you've already set out with the idea that you can't go to school. It's not for you.
Yeah, it happens, but it's not okay.
I think that they could be justified, but not ethically. I mean, you could justify, for instance, keeping immigrants out. You can justify that, but does it really make sense? Is it really because of that? We don't know. It's just this prejudice and stereotypes that we carry with us from our past. And while they're getting a little bit better, they're still really prevalent.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost natural. I mean, there are things like, things like natural selection, people that just are animals, creatures, organisms that don't have the opportunities. They either have to fend for themselves or they don't survive. So it's kind of a radical view, but I think without that, everything would be successful. And it's kind of like, who knows what kind of boat we would be in if all animals and all organisms and all diseases were able to thrive.
I believe that it's justifiable if you had gained that status although that goes back to some, if you had gained that status, your road to gain that success could have been easier, but that's really hard to compare whether or not someone had an easier road to success. But it's justifiable if they had gained that success in the same manner as another person had gained their success, all else constant.
Basic human rights. I think everyone deserves a basic human right, and the right to be nurtured and to be cared for and to have a life where they can have opportunities. And so I don't.
No, I really don't. I think they can be justified as far as capitalism. I think they can be justified as far as stereotypes. But all of the things that you can actually justify or supposedly justify these inequalities is not ethically based. It's based off of something else, trying to get something from somebody.
At the current rate in our society and on our planet right now, I think no. There's just, I mean, the richest people in the world have way too much, and the poorest of the poor have nothing, you know?
Right.
So I think in theory, it's an okay, it could be ethical in theory that there are some people that just don't have as much opportunity as others. It depends a lot on where you're born and what family you're born into, and that's something that, you know, is just what it is.
When you put an ethics into the perspective, that's what's doing what's right. What's better for everyone in that situation. What's doing the most good for everyone. So in terms of discrimination, that's not justifiably in the context of morally. Morally, it's wrong to discriminate against someone else because that's putting someone down below you, and you shouldn't put someone down below you.
Is it justified? That's kind of tough to say. If someone goes to court without an attorney and they have the money to pay for, say, something else in their lives with other than an attorney, is it justified that they get the raw end of the deal? Is it justified that they get inappropriate orders, say as far as things like child support or visitation or a jail sentence? I don't know. At least they have options now. Whereas there was a time when didn't matter how much money you had or didn't have, an attorney just wouldn't represent you because of the color of your skin or that you didn't come from the right family. Because if the attorney represented them, it would hurt their reputation and not be able to represent other people in the community. So, I don't know, that's a tough question to answer.